We live in interesting times, maybe pivotal times for our community and our country, and we begin tonight with the reckoning rocking Hollywood journalism and politics, sexual harassment. It hasn't gone unnoticed from Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose. Their careers now over and done, snuffed out almost immediately and deservedly after allegations of sexual harassment and in some cases assault. On the other hand, we just witnessed a Senate election in Alabama where some Roy Moore supporters, and Roy Moore was nearly elected despite being accused by a number of women of harassing and groping them as teenagers. He still had the support of President Trump, who has been accused of sexually harassing more than a dozen women. On Capitol Hill, yes, a number of Republicans and Democrats have now resigned, but their demise certainly wasn't immediate. In fact, there is still debate whether Senator Al Franken should have hung on and fought the pressure to quit. And joining us for more is State Representative Joe Gruters, former state senator and current county commissioner Nancy Dietert, former state representative and current school board member Shirley Brown, and Zach Anderson, political editor for the Herald Tribune. Welcome to all of you, and happy holidays to all of you. Nancy, let me start with you, because you were saying before we started here that you think it's important to talk about the problem of sexual harassment without talking about situations like Roy Moore. Why?
Well, because then it's just about politics again, and you can say, oh, that was your guy, he's terrible, we're going to win elections because your guy was terrible. Then it's a political discussion, and you're getting away from the real problem, which is sexual harassment, and it's been going on for more decades than we care to count. And to me, the real story is, and it was the real story for Time magazine, the real story is the Me Too movement, because tons of men were shocked at the depth of this. There is no woman in America or any other country that was shocked by the depth of this. The fact is that in the old days you couldn't complain. Are you going to be the first one to step up and say, Bill Cosby sexually harassed me, and everybody in America is going to agree with you? They're going to say, not Bill Cosby, he's everybody's dad.
Right.
Not Matt Lauer, we like him on the Today Show.
But they did get started in terms of the Me Too movement.
Bill Cosby,
that is true, but it got kicked into warp speed with Harvey Weinstein. And then you see people from media, whether it's Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, they are gone before the next sunrise. On the other hand, you do have, whether it's members of Congress or people in government, hang in there, it seems, for longer. And some people saying, well, you know what, the real arbiters there are the voters, and they will, they will suffer the fate of the voters.
If I can take a few minutes on that topic, because it has to be dealt with that in politics, the minute you're accused, your career is over. And we have no process to decide.
President.
Well, there you go, being political again. You're supposed to be on my team, Shirley.
All right, all right.
So you get away from the sexual harassment. The beauty to me of the Me Too movement, and what made me put Me Too on my Facebook page, was Harvey Weinstein. The fact that it's a power thing. So yes, that's where politics comes in. Power has a lot to do with politics.
But Joe, Shirley raised the issue of President Trump, and that he was accused by over a dozen women. Obviously you could say, and I assume you do, that the voters made their decision knowing what the allegations were.
Well, listen, sexual harassment's a serious issue. I think that I'm personally for justice for the accused, justice for the victim. At the end of the day, we need to have some process that's in politics to where maybe you don't take these allegations directly to the press. Maybe you go through some new system, and I know at the State House and State Senate, I think they're going to come up with a new policy that tries to address this. But at the end of the day, it is a career killer for most elected officials. You may be able to hold on to your seat if Al Franken decides to stay. Other people have been accused and stayed, but it is a serious issue. My guess is if you're accused of anything, it's going to be very difficult for you to ever move up in the system now. And it is up to the voters on whether or not they believe whatever side you're on. And certainly I think that all these allegations should be taken seriously, but they should be vetted and they should go through the process, because at the end of the day, we want justice for everybody.
Sure. Well, and I agree with Nancy. It isn't the political side of it. I mean, And it's not only women that have been harassed through this. I think what we're standing up now, there was always jokes about the casting couch. I mean, I think that was even talked about in movies. And I think that's the issue with Al Franken, too. The things that Al Franken did are still skits on SNL. I mean, we have got to have a change in our whole way of living so that we understand that that's offensive. It takes time, and I think it started bubbling up with the Bill Cosby and some of these others, but I think it's coming to a head now, and we need to have a real shift in the way we look at this.
Zach, I'm interested in your thoughts here because we've had some people who are the most prestigious people in the journalism world who are gone today because of these allegations, but we also, both of us, cover politics, and we know that it is not such a simple answer when it's an elected official who is being accused.
Yeah, and you're starting to see the political process move a little bit faster with elected officials. There was just another congressman, a Democrat from Nevada, who said he's not going to run for re-election. This week, he had been accused of sexual harassment. I think it's up to 5 members of Congress now, just in the last 2 weeks, who have either said they're not running for re-election or they're, or actually are stepping down. So it is starting to move a little bit faster in the political world as it had in the media world and in entertainment, and I think that both sides are worried that this is going to become an election issue in 2018, and if they don't take action. But on the other side, there are people who are very concerned about whether folks are getting due process and getting afforded the opportunity to defend themselves.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll have more on sexual harassment after a quick break, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking about sexual harassment in politics, and joining us for more is State Representative Joe Gruters, former state senator and current county commissioner Nancy Dietert, former state representative and current school board member Shirley Brown, and Zach Anderson, political editor of the Herald Tribune. My colleague Adam Cellini had the fortune of talking to former Congressman Dan Miller recently, who said even when he went into office, he was 50 years old, so the kids were out of the house. He was able to go up to Washington with his wife. But he does say in the halls of Congress, and we should remind people that a lot of members of Congress sleep in their offices, it was a pretty incredible scene. And so this has been going on for years, not only in Washington, but also in Tallahassee, where 3 of you have served. Are these, are we now at a point where what you saw and witnessed when you were in office is no longer the case?
I think it's probably always been so, and frankly, now that I think about it, what's making things a little better, very small increments, we're taking baby steps, frankly, is getting more women elected. When it was all men, you should have heard what they did in those days. We've all heard the old stories. You can't do that anymore. There's always going to be a few, and it really has to do a lot to do with arrogance. Sometimes when you get a title, you think there's a little crown on your head, and you think all the women you see come with the job, and they don't. I don't really know that all the men are like that. I think it's probably a very small percentage. They're going to be headline grabbers, but since there's confusion currently going on, I think we need a definition of sexual harassment. What constitutes sexual harassment? The other problem with Tallahassee is the aides, who are 90% women, can be fired for any reason, and that's always been the rule. That way, no matter who you fire, they can't come back and accuse you of anything, because you had the right to fire them for any reason.
Joe, as this has all been playing out, and there have been a number of allegations against current and now former members of the state legislature, you've been up there all this time in terms of committee weeks. What kind of, tell me what has been going on. What have you all been saying to each other in terms of cleaning up the act of the legislature when it comes to this behavior?
Well, certainly it's an honor to represent your community up in Tallahassee, and so I think everybody takes that responsibility very seriously, and they don't want that reputation to be tarnish them in any way. And I would say I've only been up there for a year, but I will tell you that 98% of the people that I run into are good people. They don't do anything that's even remotely close to being unethical, I would say. And but what happens is, because we are in politics, you take 1 or 2 or 3 of these bad people, and these stories gets blown up in every newspaper. It gets sensationalized or used as political weapons. By the end of the day, I would say most people up there, listen, they want a clean system. But I will tell you, it definitely has already had an impact. You know, where I was the longtime chairman of the party. I give a lot of hugs, and I tell people, I'm only shaking hands now, right? And I see other people, they will not. I saw it happen a couple of times where you saw 2 close people. They're just saying back, I'll shake your hand, no close touch. I've had conversations with some members who say they may put a sign outside their office that says, everything in this office is being recorded, just for their own protection, and to make sure that either it's going to go on 24/7, like some type of cam that will always be live, or just for their own sake in case they ever get accused of anything later on. That will have a ripple effect of Tallahassee in the long term. But at the end of the day, most people up there are good people. They want to do the right thing on both parties, and hopefully this allows us to continue to clean up whatever mess is left.
But up until now, Shirley, we've heard stories about there are bars that where all the action is, and that some legislators who don't want to have any part, they just go home at night. But there is a whole social scene at certain places in downtown Tallahassee where the action is.
I know when I was there, sometimes we'd go to a place called Roosters Dancing. I was never sexually harassed. I mean, I don't know if that has something to say about me. Maybe they didn't want to, or maybe I put out some airs that I wasn't there.
You're also a member of the legislature.
It doesn't stop them.
Okay.
Stop. I was never treated with anything but respect. But I do know that there were people, I mean, even when I was there, that anybody that came up, but there are people that will come, females that will come and want to be with the power, that will actually seek them out, and is that harassment? Because I know that some women want that too, to say that they've been with so-and-so.
Right. Zach, we work in the competitive field. Why has this taken so long to come out?
Well, a lot of this is rumors. A lot of this is, kind of things that are whispered behind the scenes, and it's hard to verify. These are incidents that often happen without any witnesses, with maybe just 2 people in the room. So you hear rumors, but, because of this Me Too movement, a lot of people have felt more empowered to come out and talk more about it. So you're getting more sources, and journalists feel more comfortable writing some of these stories because they're getting, multiple people making accusations instead of just hearing somebody whisper one of these rumors.
Joe, you made reference to the rules that are being changed in Tallahassee. There's been discussion also in Congress about changing the rules there, but it seems like the rules as they were so arcane that it really put the onus on the person who wanted to bring or needed to bring an allegation forward, that it made it extremely difficult to do.
And I think over time it's gotten, and hopefully because of this movement, it's going to be easier, because nobody should be subjected to any type of unwanted sexual harassment. And so hopefully the process in Tallahassee and D.C. make it available so victims can go report it and feel safe and make sure that they're protected. That's what at the end of the day, that's what we want. And by doing that, we'll ensure that justice is had, and hopefully it will continue to change people's behaviors, especially the bad people, because like I said, in Tallahassee, I would say most people are, 98% are good, ethical people. They don't go out. They aren't doing the crazy things that maybe the old days they did, but they're out there trying to do what's best for their community. But hopefully now these new rules and these new procedures will open it up so more people will feel empowered to report it right away.
I'm interested to know from all 4 of you, are we at a moment that it's going to be a sea change in terms of the Me Too movement in politics, in government? Nancy?
I think so, and I think what's empowering is for women to say, or men to say, if they're feeling pressured, I think the first thing you should say is bring it up. Say, no, I'm feeling uncomfortable when you do that. If it continues, report it. I don't think the first incident of somebody touching you, depends upon where they've touched you, of course, necessarily is harassment. I mean, to me, a harassment has to be continuous or has to interfere with your job. The incidents that we're hearing from Matt Lauer and Weinstein, I mean, they go beyond what we would normally talk about. But I think that women should be empowered to say, no, you're making me feel uncomfortable. Or if they're in an office and they want to leave the door open. I mean, to be able to do that, I would hope at least they'll be able to do that these days, you know, before it moves to where it's harassment.
Nancy.
I think there's going to be a culture change. We have to all learn how to be more comfortable with each other without going back to the old rules. I mean, the old rules is your boss, who was a guy, and you're the secretary, he's in charge of you. And he thinks, I mean, in our business life, we've had guys say crazy things, and you have to kind of sit there and take it or lose your job. I thought the best description of why women don't report, not that they're afraid. The woman who accused Roy Moore, frankly, she gave the best description of why she waited 40 years. First of all, you might lose your job. Then later on, you get married. Your husband's going to go punch the guy out. These are the things women know are going to happen if they speak up. So do you want to cause problems for you and your husband, and you're both going to lose your jobs, and then what? Nothing changed. Or you're married and you have kids, and it's a high visibility person. Do you want to be in the newspaper and embarrass your kids at their school? It's easier to just forget about it, you had a bad experience, and move on.
Zach, we have less than a minute left, but do you think that the way that the journalists are going to report on these allegations or look for them is going to change now?
I think definitely. I mean, you're seeing that a lot of these allegations are being substantiated, or at least you have a lot of people alleging the same thing, and it clearly seems like it's very likely that a lot of things happen. So you're more likely to look for these stories, you're more likely to report on them, people are more likely to come forward, and so you're more likely to have sources. Commissioner Dieter made an important point earlier. You know, one reason that this could be perpetuated, or one important aspect of perpetuating it, is having more women in elected office. A lot of it has been women that have spoken up, whether it was women that forced Al Franken, the women of the Senate who forced Al Franken to resign, and other positions as well. So I think that'll be an important sign of whether or not this continues, is how many more women get elected.
All right, we have to take another quick break. Stay with us. And our guests join us right now for final thoughts. So, Joe, you have been hearing what's been going on both in Washington and Tallahassee over the last few weeks. What's the one thing you would like to say to our viewers in terms of how things are going to change from your perspective?
I think we've empowered victims now, and I think they're going to be able to go out and make some of these allegations, and hopefully we'll have real justice for everybody. At the end of the day, that's what we want. If there's bad people in office, we should flush them out, and if people are making false accusations, that should also be flushed out, and then there should be repercussions. But certainly we need to empower the victims, give them the opportunity to have a voice.
You know, Nancy, we have a special election coming up in House 72 here. Both the Republican and the Democrat and the Libertarian are all women in terms of running for that seat, you know, actually James Buchanan.
Well, I was going to say, you forgot James Buchanan there.
Sorry about that. I wouldn't know because James hasn't been here yet.
Yeah, I know.
But you talk about the importance of getting women to run.
Yes. Well, number one, to close up on your sexual harassment, the Me Too movement and what's going on in today's world should show men the depth of what's been going on for decades and decades. Women have put up with this as in their teenage years, their business life. Going forward, I think what you need to do is have a way for them to complain anonymously and have a structure that somebody can weed out, ruining somebody's career over a hug versus real intimidation and discrimination.
Well, that's the question, Shirley. There's a pendulum that swings back and forth, and we have seen people resign in disgrace pretty quickly, but do we need some kind of moderation in terms of taking things into context, or what?
The things we've seen, I think, probably did require resignation, some of those that are out there. But I think I don't want to protect the victims. I want to protect the women before they become victims, so that they can stand up and they can say, no, this is not right for me. And maybe have businesses rewrite their policies and how to deal with it. And hopefully men understand what isn't allowed anymore. And if a woman feels uncomfortable, or a man feels uncomfortable in the presence of a boss, to say, this makes me uncomfortable, and be able to listen to without having repercussions to that. So that's where the policies need to be changed, but I think we're empowering them to stand up and say how they feel about it before they have to go to the press.
And Alan, on the politics of all this, I think unfortunately we've seen this issue sort of break down in predictable political ways, where Republicans have been more inclined to defend Roy Moore, Democrats have been more inclined to defend Al Franken. You see people sort of kind of continuing to be very polarized and partisan in how they respond to some of these accusations, and it would be hopeful going forward that there's some way to kind of depoliticize some of these things.
And we'll have to leave it there. FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And for the latest local breaking news, don't forget to download the updated version of our app. If your current app doesn't work, it's because it's expired. Just go to the App Store and re-download it by searching for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank our guests tonight, State Representative Joe Gruters, former State Senator and current County Commissioner Nancy Dietert, former State Representative and current School Board member Shirley Brown, and Zach Anderson, political editor for the Herald Tribune.